Good morning. Over the last year or so, as I've been involved with stewardship, I've sent letters and written pieces and spoken about the importance of pledging. And I've done that in my role as stewardship committee or remembering my days as a warden. I've never talked about what grace has meant to me and therefore why I pledge. That's what I want to talk to you about today. First, my full name is Jeffrey John Patrick McDowell. For all those in the audience who don't understand that, that means I was a Roman Catholic at one point. Unlike others, my experience with the Catholic Church was mixed. Certainly the hierarchy was a cause for great anger and anguish. There are times I was members of a church that was dull and boring, but I had many times in which I was a member of a congregation that was exciting, involving homilies with inspiration and challenging me intellectually. I also had opportunities to be of service and contribute to the community. So my experiences were not all bad. Many were quite good. Those of you who know me know that I spend a lot of time in my professional life working for Jesuit universities and being a member of a Jesuit parish. The Jesuits, the Society of Jesus, established by Ignatius Loyola, have informed greatly how I look at my life and my spiritual life. Central to Ignatian spirituality is the concept that we find God in all things. We discover sacred moments in our lives, grace-filled opportunities to encounter God in nature, our relationships, our professional pursuits, our hobbies, our own stories, and the stories of those around us, in liturgy, in church, and in the sacraments. After 20 years, I returned to the Nyack area, and began going to the church on the other corner. Let's just simply say it fit the category of boring and dull, but it was something I did. I had grown up in that church as a young child. But at some point, I started to have a profound theological question in my mind about a certain question. I said, I need to talk to somebody who can give me some informed, intelligent response to this question. So I sought out two people. One, the pastor of my mother's church, Lori Ferguson, and her answer was definitely yes. I came in and talked to Richard Gressel, and his answer was, well, maybe. And he gave a version of a Robin Williams response. I'm sure you'll find somebody here at Grace will have the same answer you come up with. You all remember that Robin Williams' 10 top reasons for being Episcopalian. The last one is, somebody in the Episcopal Church will agree with you. Well, it turns out that in Grace Church, somebody else had that profound question. During our interview process for when we selected Owen, a certain member of the vestry asked all three of our candidates essentially the same question. I will not tell you what Owen's response was, but all I can tell you was, are you familiar with the phrase deer in the headlights? That was Owen's response, and I could see the OMG going through his head. So I said, okay, this is good, this is a good thing. In my conversation with Richard, I had shared that in my previous church, I had been a sacristan, and how rewarding I found that, how it was important to me to be of service on the altar during liturgies. Richard's response is, let me introduce you to Evelyn. All I can tell you is a sign of God's love was a hug from Evelyn Lombardi. I'm sure many of us have had that experience and how important it was, and to have Jeanette standing on the side with her big Irish grin going along with what was going on. My first service as an acolyte here, remember those are the days when the choir would gather here in the sacristy and chant Gregorian chants. My first service was when Megs Ross was the celebrant. Now I had always thought, my head had always told me that yes, it's a good thing that women can be ordained, But in Ignatian spirituality, there's another element in which you seek for the unity of mind and heart. As I was standing there, Megs began to chant the offertory, and that's when my heart came along. That was the profound moment that, yes, women should be ordained as priests. The other part of it is music. My mother was a musician and a music teacher. Bobby Wanamaker is not here, would reinforce it. My mother was a pretty cool jazz chick, but she was also a church musician, and my very earliest memories of church were sitting by my mother on the organ bench while she played music at our Little Flower Church, Roman Catholic Church in Berkeley Heights, New Jersey, where I spent my childhood. Throughout my period with my mother, she was always a church musician. She had different choirs, and so church music was part of my growing up. I come to Grace, and what do we get? Bob Barrows and music of the 17th century and before, Gregorian chant, and we continue with Brandon Beauchamp with music of the 20th century. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Brandon. We also have Grace Music's Messiah Sing. Those of you who attended the Messiah Sing will remember Bob Barrows giving us learned presentations on Handel and the history of the Messiah. More recently, we have Brandon and his Christmas sweaters, all signs of God's music. We also have 50 years of Grace Hikes with Wynn and Tom Perry, Sails on the Clearwater, gatherings at the Basketball for Shakespeare. We have Grace Breakfast, the Midnight Run, Men's Prayer Breakfast, fundraisers, Bishop Spong, the Jesuits, the Jesus Seminar, and John Dominic Crossan, all here in this congregation. We also have moments of profound sadness when we've had to say goodbye to our friends. Evelyn's. Pat was the verger for that, and I was in some way involved in the procession back with the bishop. Pat was on the altar, and I was still outside by the entrance. That's how long the procession was coming in. And by the way, Kiki, we still owe Jeanette a service. Walter Fitzsimmons, I still don't know where we got that incense from. You had to have been there. Stephen Wanamaker, Homer Wanamaker, police officers over here, firemen over here, and recently commissioned Kyle Wanamaker, Homer's grandson, escorting his coffin in and out of the church. Dottie Larson, my mother's best friend, my sister Judy. We also had the profound moments of joy and happiness at baptisms. Richard, Patty Margolis, Alon, Emily, our first Emily, and Owen. Do all remember Richard when he would baptize a child? After the baptism was finished, he'd take the child in his arm and walk the child up and down the aisle. Child looking scared as hell as everybody cheered. And then we had Owen warning the child, remember whose bottom you belong to. And the child wondering not at all what's going on. We have great marriages. Doug and Brandon, Emily and Jacob, Amy and Richard. And where else but Grace Church would you find music like this again? The Neville sisters serenading Emily with the music of the Dixie Cups, going to the chapel, or Bob Barrows playing and the organ singing the Rolling Stones, You Can't Always Get What You Want. And at Grace, I met Pat. I am grateful for all these moments, these experiences, these relationships. As Owen would remind us, Grace is a place and is the community where I have found and been reminded to find God in all things. That is why I pledge. To those who have pledged and will pledge, thank you for helping ensure our experience of grace will go on. Thank you.